Good morning, everybody. Thank you really a lot for being here. I've got bright lights from outside. They decided to have sun in Southern California today. So I'm gonna move things around. What I really wanna do is just kind of share the experience with you. I was approached with this. A couple people have asked me, is this yours? The answer to that, to be honest, is no. They were talking about an Outlander knitting book from the very beginning, and one of the local stores to us has a client who works for Sony Studios. And the client came in, sat down, and talked about the book. They talked with the store owner. They wanted her to help. And what they needed help with was not something that she could do. I've known this store owner since I'm about 12 years old. And she said, one person right nearby, contact Barry at Trendsetter Yarns. He can help you with what you need. And what they did when they came to me and what we talked about was they originally talked about doing just a knitting book. It wasn't going to be a big, thick book. It was going to be like an Andy Blatt book or a Trendsetter Yarns book. It was going to have 10 or 12 patterns in it. It was just going to say Outlander, and that was it. But as we started talking, as the editor, Kate Atherley, decided, she reached out to designers from all over the world. And what we were asked to do was pick a character, pick an episode, and design something that brought you and Outlander together. And so that's how the book got to be the size that it is. As you start to read through it, it is a book. You will see chapters, you will see the real characters, you will see pictures from the show itself, and then all of the patterns. And the patterns are done in multiples of sizes. They took into consideration people that are extra small, up to people my size, extra large, extra large. And then in kit form, we were asked if we would put other color combinations together because the designers held true to what the time frame was. The other part of the discussion was, they asked me, what makes Trendsetter? Why are you the company that you are? And one of the things that came up is that we set out a strategic plan when we started. And that is to be called Trendsetter, you have to have yarns that set trends. You can't have a name that doesn't relate to who you are as a company and to what your product is. And so I turned it around and said, okay, what is it about Outlander that's going to make this an Outlander book? And the end result was coming up with fibers that are pure, fibers that are natural, fibers that can be organic, and colors and things that will work for the time frame so that the designs can continue to tell the Outlander story. So I'm just going to start by reading a little something from the book, and I won't read the whole book to you, I promise. On the very front, it says, from the Scottish Highlands to the courts of Versailles to the eastern shores of North America, the TV show Outlander brings to life in gorgeous detail the epic love story of Jamie and Claire. Now knitters of all skill levels can knit 20 projects of apparel, accessories, and home decor that take inspiration from memorable episodes. Each project includes a clearly written pattern, gorgeous photography, and a scene from the show's set. And this last line truly says what it's all about. This is a love letter to our fans. Outlander Knitting will transport you back in time to the Scottish Highlands. So welcome, and we're going to get started. So the very first piece is called the Gathering Cape. It was one of the very first pieces that was put together. And the book is kind of in a little bit of an order. To give you an example, I hope it shows up. So this is the back cover of the book. This is the piece that Claire wears. And I just want you to see this right here because I'll be mentioning it later on. But in the episode itself, Claire is wearing like a little shoulder warmer. It has a little scarf, has a cowl edge to it, and it just sits right over the top of the shoulders. So the designer who put this together selected the shape. And what makes this what it is this is a yarn from Trendsetter called Me. And we selected this yarn for many reasons. One of the reasons is that it is a thick and thin yarn. It is wool fiber, but it's not spun into strands. It's what we call an open spinning. It's thick and thin, and it's the pressing of it through rollers. So when they had the wool by hand, they would have sat and twisted their hands together to create what they call roving. So this has a thick and thin texture, but it's the dye process. They don't take the yarn and dye it. What we did here is we laid color on top. And so it saturates in certain areas and doesn't in others. And it truly reminded us of what things could look like in the 1700s, and in order to try and match the original from the book. So this is the Gathering Cape, and this is from season 1, episode 4 of Outlander.
That's great. That yarn is so nice. For those of you that haven't worked with it, and it comes in great colors.
So this will probably be the most recognizable piece of anything. From the very first time that people noticed yarn and knitwear in the Outlander book, this would be the piece. And it is why it's on the cover of the book. So Claire was out, she was wearing this shawl, and what they did in order to pay tribute to it is that in the book itself, they've given you the instructions to knit it exactly like what you saw in the episode. It's short, it sits right at the top of Claire's waist, it's not very long in the back, it's a much smaller piece, and it's done with short rows in order to get the shaping to it. What the designer did here is we picked a yarn that's pure alpaca. And as you can see, it's not very small. So for people today, for the way that we wear things today, she opted to do this more oversized. And in this case, it's done in tarja style. So it starts at the bottom, you attach the bottom color, and as the colors start to come into play, you attach them. So at one point, you're going to have 5 skeins of yarn attached, and the pattern shapes by the yarn overs that are in the center. So it continues to grow and take shape as you continue to work it. The nice part about this is that it can be worn like that. So similar to how Claire has it, it just hangs down longer. You can take these and you can wrap one over so that you keep your neck warm and let the other side hang down. And what a lot of people are doing with accessories now is they just put the point on a shoulder and flip the edges like that. So that as you walk and as you wear it, all the detail continues to show and it doesn't get hidden in the back. The weight of the yarn, because it's pure alpaca, is a little more heavy, but it feels great and has amazing elasticity. And in the original piece, it also was a pure alpaca. So when we talked to them, we asked them why they picked it, and they said it was for warmth. And I'm just going to read this also really quickly for you. It says the importance of wool. As knitters, we all know and understand the value of wool. And members of the Outlander costume department learned early in the production, if it was cold inside the stone castle, shooting outside was going to be even worse. After all, actors need to be kept warm and dry while waiting sometimes long periods between takes. This is a show with plenty of outdoor action, often with many characters and costume teams worried about everyone's safety, care, and health. So alpaca, keeping it warm, keeping it natural, sticking to the shape exactly as it was in the book, just modernizing it and bringing Outlander to today.
And that's called the Rent Shawl. I won't remember all the names.
Yes, there's a quiz at the end. So whoever can remember all the names, that's how you win the prize. I'm not supposed to tell you that, but I'm giving it away. No, don't listen to me. All right, so this piece is a tube. It's knit, you cast on, it's worked around, it's done in garter stitch, and it uses the same yarn. It uses the same alpaca fiber. And in this case, it's knit double-stranded so that you get a solid color. It transitions with a tweed and goes back to a solid. And it does this all the way around. You're casting on with scrap yarn, and then you pick up and you 3-needle bind off, so it becomes tubular. It's knit sideways around the body. It's designed to be worn just as a neck cowl, and it is wide enough that you can pull it down over the shoulders, keep the back of the neck warm, and still wear a coat. And it's long enough, depending on bust size, to wear it many, many different ways. This is called the Sassanak. And what's wonderful about this piece is that if you've seen the show, you hear Jamie, who is the love interest, every time he refers to Claire, he doesn't call her Claire, he calls her Sassanak. And he does it because it's the way a Gaelic man would refer to a British or English woman. And it's a sign of endearment. It's also a sign of respect. And because when he met her and he heard her accent, he realized that she was not Gaelic or Irish, that she came from someplace different. And at that point, still didn't know where that was. So as a term of endearment, he calls her Sassanak. And this is what was designed for her based off of that time frame. So this piece has very special meaning for a couple of reasons. This is called the River Run Shawl, and it takes its inspiration from the contrast in texture and fabrics that were seen in the episode. In this episode, Claire is wearing a red dress. It's a very strong shade of red, and underneath it, she's wearing a lace blouse, and you see the ruffled edge. So the colors in this come from what was seen in the original episode. The design itself was based off of how fit the bodice was. What's really neat about it is in knitting this and in reading what's in the book, there's a section that says design options. They don't just say, here it is, do it, like it, or too bad. They explain in there very clearly, it starts right at the top. So you knit a rectangle right up here. Afterwards, you pick up along the rectangle and you keep working out. So what you're knitting is a crescent. And it has you work until you have a certain number of stitches, or you run out of yarn, because this kit takes 3 skeins of yarn. But they know that not everyone wants something this size. So in the book, they tell you that if you want it larger, you can get extra yarn, which you can. You continue to make it bigger. But the hint that's really nice about it is that this beautiful lace border, the pattern is a multiple of 12 plus 7. So they tell you, if you're making it bigger, continue until you have enough stitches that's divisible by 12 plus 7. In most cases, they just tell you, make it bigger, and then you figure it out. Well, now you don't have to. They tell you so that you know in advance. The other thing that they tell you, which was a really nice feature, is that if you just go to a yarn that's a little bit bigger gauge, and so to keep it true to Outlander, we used our Merino 6 ply. And because of the row gauge, we used the exact same instructions, followed it 100%, and now you can see just how much larger it is. So we did nothing different other than follow the instructions, but because of the difference in the thickness of the yarn, it became proportionately larger. So we're just pointing this out that as you start to buy these things, if you choose that you want to do the River Run Shawl, but you want to do it in merino, just let us know and we can put it together for you. The kit pricing is exactly the same, and we made a point of that. In selecting it, we made sure that we didn't have to have lots of different details that confused you. So a really easy pattern. It's great to wear. Same thing, you can wear it sideways. This little lace detail, there's a chart on doing the lace. I actually just taught this as a class 4 or 5 days ago. Everybody got really far in the class. It's really fun to do. And the details in how to do all of this is written perfectly. There was absolutely no problems. We had people that were beginners and people that were advanced knitters, and every single person got it. So I know for a fact that this pattern is written with perfection. So this is the River Run Shawl. Again, you've got options. Here we did it in merino, and this is done in a yarn called New York, and that's the original from the book.
New York is
Now she looks like a crazy person that needs a cart.
a
Oh well.
New York is a lovely yarn. It's an organic yarn as well. Really, really nice.
All right, so now we have the man I left behind. It's always interesting every time I say that. I don't know, I feel like I have to get emotional about it. But what they've done here is, for those of you who don't know the story, I'm not going to give anything away, but what happens is Claire is in a marriage, and it's not a happy marriage. And she and her husband go away, and she dreams of a different life. And as she leans against a stone, she falls through the stone. And she ends up back in the 1700s, and that's how the story begins. And it's an incredible love story. It truly is dramatic. There are fight scenes. There are everything that you can imagine. The best part about it is the love between Claire and Jamie. But I hope for everybody, including myself, is that at some point in your life, you find somebody that has that kind of passion and that kind of love for each other, because it's incredible to see. And it's shown in the different things that they put into the book. Where this comes in is that there's a point where Claire goes away with Jamie, and while he is discussing his business, she's leaning and sitting down, and she hears them singing a song. And the lyrics talk about a woman who has an experience like she has had. It talks about a woman who touches a tall stone at Cranadune and then travels back to a distant land. And during the song, she imagines heading home. And in heading home, and they show this in the episode and it's in the book, she sees a picture of her husband in the 1900s. And for the first time that you see him, he had a smile on his face. And so it let you understand that she did leave a man behind. She wants to love him, and she wants him to love her. And she finally saw him with a smile. In this piece, this is also Merino 6. What's great about Merino 6 is it's 6 plies of merino. The single ply wool is what we use for men's suiting fabrics. So if you ever buy a man's suit and in the back it says 100% single ply merino, that's what's used here. It's the type of wool that can be worn all year long. In this technique, it's done fair isle. As you can see here, all the different stitches are carried across. You can see the carry threads on the inside. What they also did in the book is they put different techniques in here. And so in this technique, it's a technique called steeking. If you don't know what that is, at the long time ago, I had no idea, but this is worked circular. You work around and around, you carry the yarns up along as you go. And in order to create the armholes, when you do steeking, you are twisting stitches in a certain way to basically create an edge. And in order to get the armhole, you take a scissor and you start cutting between 2 steeks. Don't scream, don't go running from the building. It absolutely does work. And afterwards, it all gets folded to the inside. So kind of hard to see here, but this is the steek. That's better. So you can see where the colors were twisted, and then when it's picked up, it's secured in order to do the border. Great use of colors. There's one main color, there's accent colors, and there's lots of wonderful kit colors. And there's a superstition that you never knit anything for someone that you're not married to. That's why, you know, put a ring on it kind of thing. Well, I always say, you make this, and this won't be a man that you've left behind. Because if you put this much work into it, he's staying no matter what.
Yeah, it's such a beautiful piece.
Okay, here we are. And in this design, this is called the lace fichu. And in designing this, they wanted to have the experience of helping people learn to do lace. And lace in here, what's very special is that it's done on garter stitch, so that both inside and outside are knit. The one thing that people don't like is to purl. Most people don't like purling. So if you do the lace on one side and you know that you still have to do a purl row coming back, it becomes 2 rows that you may not like. Now this is a very visual stitch pattern. You'll be able to read your knitting, to count the eyelets, to see where stitches go, and the return row is plain knit. So 1 row is super easy. In the design style, it has a great little border. You can see how it gets wider. The best part about this for me is the edging. So there is a stiffness along the edge so that as you wear it, it drapes. And the designer in the decision process said she wanted to keep this unfussy with a practical charm. And this is seen, this style, this shape, and this piece is seen multiple times throughout season 1 of Outlander. It's called the fichu shawl because it's like a piece of lace. And with these pieces being long enough, this can be worn again, and draping it up and over, keeping one side down. And it is big enough to overlap them both. The other part that's nice about it is the yarn that's selected. This is a yarn called Merino Melange. It's from GGH, which is one of the divisions from Trendsetter. And it is a 4-ply to 5-ply yarn. Depending on the color, there's 4 or 5 plies, but each ply is shaded. So it's what we call a melange. It's not multicolored, it's not dyed, it's all natural shades, and the natural shades are twisted together. It has wonderful elasticity, which is important because of all that you're doing. If you can pull it and it bounces right back, you know you have a yarn that will keep its shape. Very important and very true to what Outlander is. You can change it, but it always comes back to where it started.
Oh, so did you see? Yeah, Marie Christine just.
Yep, Marie Christine wrote fichu. Well, it went way too fast here. It's important to know, so I'm going to grab it. Marie Christine wrote, fichu in the original French doesn't mean lace. It means the kind of small shawl best exemplified by the initial rent shawl. Thank you.
Thank you. Merci.
So here we have the I Found Him cardigan. And what's important about this is that the original in the show itself, it was crocheted. I've been reading responses all over the place about the book. There have been things, there is an Outlander chat lounge, there is an Outlander everything. And in looking through it, the only complaint that I've seen is that there is no crochet in the book. Well, there is a reason. It was not to be insulting, but when you're calling a book Outlander Knitting, you can't really call it Outlander Knitting and put a crochet piece in there. And so what they're realizing is that there's possibly a need for another book called Outlander Crochet. And we'll see where it all leads. But the designer loved the look of this. Claire is a doctor. She ends up back home. And she wore luxury fibers because she was from the upper class. She wore lots of velvets, lots of really elegant, different types of details in her fabrics. And in this case, in the crochet, it had a pattern that created the diamonds. At the time in this episode, Claire knows that she is pregnant. She has had a child. And it is Jamie's child. It is not her husband's. It is her love's child. And at the time that she leaves, she knows that there was an upcoming war. And she did not know if Jamie had survived. So the design defines a time that Claire goes back. She finds all the different places that she could find out about the war and about the details. She ends up finding a reverend, and in the scrolls from the reverend, she finds the War of Culloden. And it was from 1750, and she starts reading through it, and she sees Jamie's name. So she realizes at that moment, the true love of her life has survived. She doesn't know much about anything else, and it's how the story progresses. And so this is called the I Found Him cardigan. And because of that, the designer selected Cardiff cashmere. So this is our DK weight cashmere, 100% pure cashmere. And the more you wear it and the more you knit with it, the softer it gets, the better the halo. But it kept in tune with luxury. Who was Claire? Who was Claire at the time of that episode? And she found him.
That's great. That's and that cashmere is so nice to work with.
Yeah, it's an incredible piece. For the sock lovers, and we know that there's many, there are, just actually real quickly before I go into this, in the book itself, there are 20 designs. What I'm showing you today are 15 of them. In the end, some of the designers are from out of country, and they selected yarns that were there for them, that they could easily grab onto, and that were true to what it is that they wanted rather than having them come from us. So in kit form, we do 15 of the 20 pieces. There are 2 pairs of socks. One of them uses our yarn, the other one uses a yarn from Lang. But if it's something that you fall in love with, Oz and Chris have tons of sock yarns in the store. It's also something that we can do. There's 2 baby blankets. They're done out of pure wool. And again, the same thing. One of them's from Barocco, one of them's from a yarn that's not available in the United States. So we've had stores contact us, we've had people contact us and say, okay, I want that design, I want that kit. What do you have so that I stay with Trendsetter and put it together for me? So just know that we can put anything together for you if it's not already done. And in this case, this is called the Dune sock. And with this sock, they keep lace in here because of the time frame. And if you remember back to that very first picture I showed you on the back where Claire is wearing a dress, where it's tied, those ties create a diamond pattern. And so that diamond pattern is carried forward in a few different pieces that we're going to see. One of them starts right here in the sock. So there is a cable because Gaelic and Irish times all had cables. It was very traditional of the time, but they carried through the detailing of what happens when the top of a top is tied. It pulls together and gathers. And this was done for the Dune Castle. It's a castle where Claire and Jamie go. They have a family meeting there, and it's the color of the clay and the type of stones that were used. And so the details are all the way through.
Great stuff.
This one is called Mrs. Fitz's Arm Warmers. And this is actually one that I got to design. It was one of the privileges of being part of the book, is they asked me to be one of the designers. And I have watched from the very, very beginning. I love stories. It makes me happy. It makes it easy to knit. I don't go crazy in doing it, but I love to see where the characters are going. And I fell in love with both Claire and Jamie. And so one of the characters shows up pretty early, and that's Mrs. Fitzgibbons. And she was a chef, she was a cook. And what I loved about her, what drew me to her, was she was snarky. She had an attitude, and I guess I like women with attitude, there you go. She was strong, and she didn't put up with anything. And every time you saw her, whether she was happy, whether she was cranky, whether it was just a regular day, she always had on a pair of arm warmers. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna play with it. And in this case, I used a yarn that we have called Basis. And Basis is a cotton stranded yarn. And as it's twisted, as the strands are twisted, they're either white strands or black strands. And then part of it gets dyed, so that it is a total blend of color and fiber. It happens at random, and it's done in a knit one, purl one rib. But instead of it being fit the entire way, it continues to turn. So you reflect knits to pearls, pearls to knits. The first one that I did was straight the entire way. And the more that I looked at it, I kept thinking, nothing in this show is straight. Everything curves, everything has an angle, and everything has movement. So I completely redid them and kept changing the stitch, just keeping it true to how I saw Outlander, is that it's always in movement. So they're long. A couple people have asked, they come in 2 sizes, small, medium, and large. With the large, which is 3 skeins instead of 2, if you don't wear arm warmers, but you're somebody who lives in an area that you like leggings, you can do this and they become leggings. You just follow the pattern, don't do the arm, don't do the thumb hole, and they became really good leg warmers. They don't go all the way up unless you buy extra yarn and really increase out. But again, lots of options. And this is Mrs. Fitz's arm warmers. Now we have what we call lovats, mitts, and cowl. There are two. I'm only showing you one. But in this case, what this is a yarn called Wish. It is a merino. It is an organic merino that has injected pieces of polyamide in it in order to get touches of flecks of color. You can kind of see little fuchsias and blues and yellows and greens. So it becomes a little tweed. What was really fun about this is that the designer sent us a piece that Jamie is wearing, and we selected colors that match his family crest. Every family has a crest, which is a design, and they have special colors that belong to their clan. These are Jamie's clan colors. The design is Fair Isle. It is done in a specific way using the colors. But what I loved about it was the personal note that came from the designer. She said, I looked through all the yarns that you sent, and I selected this one for one reason. I know people won't know the name Wish, but for me, that's what's the seal. Because for Claire, she has many wishes. She wishes that her husband loved her enough. She fell in love with Jamie. She wishes to be with him, and she wishes for the perfect life. And so with the name Wish, she wishes that everyone falls in love with these as much as she did. So there's a pair of mitts, and then there is a beautiful cowl that goes with it. And in the kit, there's enough yarn to do both mitts and the cowl. Lots of great color combinations. It's a wonderful way to work with Fair Isle. And as you can see, you still have the floats on the inside, but it's done in a way where every color is worked for 2 rows. And that way it moves up very evenly and very quickly in order to create the pattern. So this is called lovats, mitts, and cowl.
That's great. And for those of you that don't remember, I'm going to go and show the Outlander page again real quickly. Because when you go down there and you look at these different pieces, you'll see all the different, like here's the mitts and cowls. So you can see the overview page, and then you can see all the different color options. And yeah, that's just a fabulous yarn for that piece.
And now we have a piece that is one that I want to do. I always fall in love with something. I've really enjoyed doing River Run, but in this case, this is everything about the book. This is called the Randall Fraser. And at the time that you see this, Claire and Jamie's daughter has been born. She's an adult and she's trying to figure out her history. So it's jumped far forward. And she's sitting with a man who is a historian. And in this episode, he is wearing a sweater just like this. And she's looking through history books trying to figure out really who is her mom, who is her father, and what kind of a person is she? And it's at that point that she realizes that the 2 lives come together. Claire Randall, Jamie Fraser. And we use Merino 6 here. It has great elasticity to it. It is done also in Fair Isle style, but it's done from the neck down. There's a few short rows that are done in here to create shaping and detail. Back to each yarn being used for 2 rows so that it does 2 motions. It does a knit row and a purl row, but it's all done in knit because it's joined. And it's worked in one piece all the way down to the armhole. These get put on a holder and you work down. In this book, it's shown on a woman as the model, but this absolutely can be a man's sweater. It's just a standard crew neck. For most every man, you're going to want to make it longer because on me, this would be a belly shirt, not a pretty look at all. So keep going and we can get extra yarn to do that. So remember, any of these things, some people don't like 3/4 sleeves, they want longer sleeves. Just let us know, we throw a couple of extra balls of yarn in there. But Brianna finds out about Claire and Jamie. She learns about her Scottish roots. She learns about the backcountry, and she learns about a life that she's dreamed of as well. So again, this is Randall Fraser. It can be worn for a man or a woman. In most cases, many of these things can. Library. I've lost it. Here it is. Trying to put it all up in order. It doesn't work that way. So this is the library vest. And this is also done in the yarn called New York. It is an organic wool. It is all natural, so you can see that there's shades. Because it's white, there are shades of the natural fluff and the natural fiber that are in the sheet. It's not dyed white. This is all kept pure and natural. It is organic, and it's used to create this library vest with a beautiful, beautiful cable. And this stays very tailored. In episode 1 of season 2, Claire wears a cabled vest, and she wears it over a blouse. She's pondering leaving Jamie in the past. She's pondering the future. But this is just showing how tailored she was. And it defines the twist that's in her life, and it's always there. So the library vest, you can do sleeves if you want to do sleeves. We'd have to write the instructions for you. And there you go.
It's just beautiful. And that yarn, that's one of Chris's favorite yarns. She has a sweater that she knitted out of New York. It's just great. It's a delightful yarn. We keep it in the store because we love it.
It is. It's also a really, I don't like talking about price, but for what it is, for being an organic merino, it's an amazing price with great yardage. It does not cost a lot to do this.
Yeah.
So somebody wrote, it's nice. Oh, Marie Christine. Well, you and I need to be really good friends, Marie. So I agree. What she wrote on there is that she appreciates that they did work on the back. In every one of these pieces, the details are on the back as well. So many times designers, what I call flake out, because you don't walk into a room backwards. They leave backs plain and they put all the details in the front. Throughout this book, on every one of the pieces, there's details on all sides. So this is called Jamie's Waistcoat. This is also done in New York. And so again, you can see the heathery part of it. All the natural flaws and fibers and touches of details that are in the natural wool stayed in there when it's dyed. It keeps it very classic. And it's a knitted vest that's a stylish choice to keep the body warm, but leaves the arms open because they never knew when they were going to have to do stable work or, God forbid, be caught in a battle. And Jamie's waistcoat is fashioned in the shape of a long coat. You see Jamie wearing it in episode 12 of season 1, but not keeping it totally simple. There is great neck detail. It's a braided, twisted stitch that goes all the way along the edges. And it comes from embroidery that are done on a greatcoat worn by Lord Laird Column. And it was done from episode 9. So again, 2 characters coming together. For Jamie, it's classic, it's set for movement and work, but the extra details tie in something from one of the other characters. Now, while the back is plain, the bottom ribbing has that same border, and they carry it over to the back. You can knit sleeves for this, but most men have white dress shirts. Just wear this over a white dress shirt. This also would make a great vest for a woman. The only difference between what a man has and a woman has, change the size of the buttons. So for a man, it buttons on the left. For a woman, it buttons on the right. So when you're doing your bands, just reverse those. Probably have to make it a little bit shorter, but again, one design, good for everyone.
Yeah, we've seen yarns like New York from other, we'll call them trendy brands that cost a lot more than what New York does. It's an impressive yarn.
Yep. And so Tina just put a note on the bottom of it that for that last vest with today's style, she said that for her and for other people, you can make it longer. Add the length, let it go down to the knee and make a belt and tie it, and you'd have a great dress.
Yeah.
So again, that's the creative process. That's what I love about doing stuff like this. They're giving you the basic idea. They're giving you hints inside the book, and then put yourself into it. You get to become Claire or Jamie or whoever you choose to be at that moment. This is called, I never pronounce this right, Savus des Anges. And this is from episode 3 of season 2. And Claire wore a stunning colored mustard dress. Jamie takes her to Versailles. It's one of the dressiest events that they go to. And in there, this dress stands out in contrast to everybody else. It has a gorgeous fit upper bodice, and then it flows from there. And so the color was selected to represent the fabric. The design itself is a beautiful eyelet. Again, keeping true to the time frame. You can see the stitch detail. This is a yarn called Ultimoda Cashmere Fine. And it's all about the construction. This is a cabled yarn, so it looks like a shoelace. It's tubular, so it has an air space in the middle, and it gives it great elasticity. And what does the elasticity do? Well, it allows me to do that and let it go, and it bounces right back. There's not many yarns that you can do that to. It also makes it so that you have great stitch definition without having to do a lot of work. You don't have to worry about your tension. You let the elasticity in the yarn keep it all in place. In this instance, the design goes all the way around, a little shell pattern up on top, back to that diamond tie look that was in that bodice of the first piece that I showed you. Again, to look like being tied up. It's a nice pattern because it makes it look long. You can make it longer. We all have things that we like and dislike. And this is the only thing for me that I would have changed in the entire book. They have ties up here. Now, I understand why the ties are on there. They wanted to tie it into the fabric that Claire was wearing, so that you knew that this was established from a piece of fabric. But this is Christmas ribbon, and it has metal on the edge. So you can crunch it and it will do that. And I think for how elegant this piece is, and I think it is truly elegant and luxurious. It would be gorgeous in cashmere. It's fantastic in this yarn. This would be the part that I would leave off. You could have a hook and eye if you wanted to close it. You could leave it untied altogether. So every time I show it, sorry, excuse me for what I'm about to do, but I hide those and just pull the front together. So anyways, it doesn't look that fantastic now that I've done that. And if you try it on, trust me, I won't be putting the ties down the top of your blouse. So not to worry about that. You will be safe, but up to you how you choose to do it. There are some gorgeous ribbons that would make a beautiful tie. So a nice satin ribbon, it's just the choice that they put in here. But from a design standpoint, it's lovely over a gown. It's beautiful over a top. It's just a great accessory piece. The other thing that's nice about it is that at some point, we will be allowed to travel again. So if you go on airplanes and you just want something to throw over you, it's perfect. If you go on cruises, fantastic for formal night. Just to have something that lays over your shoulders, that stays in place. And a couple of people asked me if they could get extra yarn in order to make it much longer. The answer to that is yes. Is it big enough that you could tack it at the sides to resemble a sleeve? Not sure I understand that question. So when we open it up at the end, ask me again and we'll talk about it. For sure, there's always ways to make things happen. Anyways, this is the Savus des Anges shawl.
Well, the other question would 100% cashmere have the same stitch memory?
Yes.
I would, yeah, the classic cashmere is just beautiful.
Yeah, it has great elasticity. Again, the easiest way to tell, you can see the stitch definition. This is the 100% cashmere, and you can do the same thing. You can pull it and it bounces back. All right, the finishing touch. Maybe one of the most talked about pieces in the book so far. So this is called the Revescent Tea Cozy. And it is a simple design. It is set up for symbols of the Jacobite movement in which Claire and Jamie get caught up. It brings the two clans together. The symbol of the movement is a large oak leaf and acorns. It is the symbol of the time, it's the symbol of the family. This is also knit with wish. So as you can see in here, you get the little pebbles of all different shades that run through. A perfect yarn for this. What makes it very special is it says Revescent means to be revived. Sit with a cup of tea, sit with your yarn, your Outlander knitting book, and indeed you too will be revived. And I just have to show what makes it special for me is my teapot.
That's great.
So my teapot looks like it's been knit. So whether I have the cover on or the cover off, I always have my knitting. And that, my friends, is Outlander.
Oh, that's fabulous. And for those of you asking, no, we can't source you the teapot.
Sorry about that. I just want to show this real quickly, Oz, and then I'll stop talking for a change.
No.
This is what the kits look like. So everything that we have put together comes with approval of Sony Studios and Tall Ships or Tall Sails, which is the Outlander company. Nothing has been done without their approval. We put it together, we send it to them, we go back and forth. How you know that this is real is that everything that says Outlander, at the end of it, it has the trademark. So we are given permission to use their company name. If it doesn't have the trademark, it is not real. There's no extra charge for any of that. I know some people have said, well, fine, you're just gonna up the price because you had to pay for it. The truth is, I did not have to pay for it. All the work that I've put in to be a part of it is what gave me permission to do this. And Sony has been fantastic to work with. They've been a great association. And on here, on the bottom, when you open up, well, you can't see it on this one. Let's see if I can, well, I can't get this to show, unfortunately, maybe a little bit. We found gorgeous paper, and on the paper, it's the map of the world. So that it's just a reminder that Claire travels the world in order to put her life together. So there's a gorgeous piece of gift wrap paper at the bottom. There's a hang tag on every kit that shows you what the design is. Inside are all the details, all the sizes, and all, again, it's not going to show on here because of the lights, but every bit of detail that you would need to know so that there's no surprises. And all the information in order to reach us if you have any questions is on there as well. One of the things that I personally pride myself on and my company on is that our job is not just to sell you. Our job is to be a partner in this. This is a three-way partnership. We sell to Oz and Chris, and they sell to you. And all three of us come together at that point. So if there's any questions that you have, you reach out to them and they reach out to me. Most of you know how to get in touch with me. You send me a note, and I promise you, you will hear from me. So from a personal standpoint, thank you for being here. It's been an honor to be a part of this, and thank you for letting me share Outlander with you.
Yay. Thank you, Barry. That's just great.
Thank you.
That's just great. And in chat, we put a link. Marie Christine was kind enough to put a link to the Tea Cozy. Mm-hmm. And then right under that, we put the direct link right to the Outlander collection. So you can see all those beautiful kits. We have had at the shop a couple of people contact us about other patterns that aren't using Trendsetter yarns. And we absolutely work with Trendsetter on putting those together because, you know, we want to do that because it's fun. Anybody have any questions, any comments?
Yeah, we can unmute. If you want to unmute everyone, we can just let people talk.
Yeah, people, you can unmute yourselves to ask a question.
How much is the book?
$24.99 is what's on the book.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's worth every penny. It's an incredible book. The people that have read it say they're keeping it out as a tabletop book because it's worth the read. There's great details in there, and it's a beautiful book. It's a hardbound book, so that it's something that can be sat out at all times.
Mary, my question on the one directly to your left, the ochre colored one, was if you could tack it like, and is it large enough that you did a poncho or something yesterday where it was tacked? Is
Yeah.
that big enough where you could do a tack so it
Oh,
would?
sure. Yeah. You would want to follow the larger size. So what we're talking about is right now, it's just a cape. What we did yesterday is we put a tack like right here so that when your arm goes through, this becomes the body and that becomes like a sleeve. You don't sew it the whole way because you don't want it closed. You just want it tacked for about 10 stitches. The answer to that is yes, but plan to go up a size when you do that, because the minute that tack is in place, you want to make sure that the fronts are going to meet. And that tack, as you move your arms, may make the fronts come across and it may sit in a weird spot. So go up one size.
Barry, you could tack at the bottom as well.
Yeah.
Just tack around where your wrists would go.
Yeah,
And I think that would work better with that shape.
Yeah, you can do it just about any place. You still have to be careful that with that tack, the minute your arms move, that moves. Whereas if it's free and your hands move, there's just a little more movement. So just watch the sizing is the only thing that's important. But yes, there's lots of options.
Yeah.
Anything
Any
else?
other questions?
Beautiful book, beautiful designs.
Thank you.
I've been an Outlander fan since my first.
You can read the patterns easily.
Yes. The patterns are very easy to read. They've gone into explicit detail. First of all, the best part is they didn't use an 8-point font. Okay, you don't need to blow it up and you don't need to take out cheaters or bifocals in order to read it. But they've done great details. So they give you skills that are required. They tell you what the materials are. They give you gauges, notions, and they give you different ideas. But in every way, they've informed you what it's supposed to look like so that you have a finished close-up of the knit so that as you're doing the pattern, you know that you're in the right spot. So they've taken great effort to make sure that you know where you are.
Oh, yeah.